The September 10th primary election to name a Democratic candidate for mayor is almost here. You've heard the four candidates at numerous debates and forums already, so instead, we're asking public faces in the Norwalk community who they support and why. In this segment, we'll be talking to former Democratic Mayor Alex Knopp, who supports Harry Rilling. Why, in your own words, are you supporting Harry Rilling?
Well, I think for two basic reasons. First, as the former police chief, Harry has the management experience of having run one of the largest departments in the city of Norwalk. That involves budget matters, policy planning, handling personnel, dealing with emergencies. And I think that experience is really vital to be a competent and effective mayor. Second, obviously, part of being in the election process is trying to win. And as the expression goes, in the lottery you can't win if you don't play, and in the government business you can't play if you don't win. And I think Harry, of all the Democratic candidates, has the best chance of winning based on his long service in the police department, which has given him tremendous name recognition and a very positive image among all groups in the community and among all political persuasions, Democrats, Republicans, unaffiliated voters, and everyone who's part of this community.
If you can, kind of give me one issue that, to you anyway, maybe you care about a little more than others, and then explain to me what you know of Harry's stance on the issue and why or why you don't agree with his stance on that issue.
Well, you know, there are a lot of individual issues that I think Harry has taken a very progressive position on. Things like opposing more big box retail stores in Norwalk, and issues like that. But the thing that I'm most concerned about is the character of the sort of government interaction. And unfortunately, I think over the last 10 years, there's been a real decline in the civic culture of Norwalk. Too much bickering, too much partisanship, too many factions, too much infighting. And that has, I think, soured a lot of the public on participating. And I think what Harry will bring is a much more kind of mature and kind of open attitude about government. He is not a person who has a long history as a partisan, and in his role as police chief really had to deal with everybody in the community on an equal basis. So I think translating that background and skills into being a elected official means that the government of Norwalk under a Mayor Rilling would be a government that would be more open, more transparent, more accountable, and more civil. There's nothing I hate more than reading these bickering accusations in the paper. And it turns everybody off, it turns me off. And you know, I love the governmental process, I love legislating, and those things seem to have taken a back seat towards kind of a nasty vindictiveness and name calling, and I think Harry will bring an end to that.
Sure. So you obviously were mayor for 4 years.
Yes.
What specifically about Harry and his experience do you think qualifies him to handle that job based on your own experience having that job?
Well, I had been involved in electoral politics and governmental affairs for quite a long time. I had been president of the city council. I had been a state legislator for 15 years, and I had also worked on Capitol Hill for some senators and members of Congress. So I had kind of a long history in these kinds of issues. And what I found was that it's very hard to jump into the job on day one, hit the ground running, and be effective. There's quite a learning curve. So I think that Harry's experience as chief of the police department will give him a real step up when it comes to being ready to deal with the budget. I mean, for example, you're elected in November, 2 weeks after that you take office, and then a few weeks later you have to present a budget. So there's not a lot of opportunity for on-the-job training and on-the-job learning. I think what Harry will bring to that job is the ability to translate his experiences as an effective manager in one of the city's biggest departments, the police department, into an opportunity to quite quickly take the reins of the whole city government. So I think that kind of managerial experience is really important. I did not have it as mayor. I had a lot of policy experience, So I think that Harry's ability to understand the management process and to get policy input from many of his advisors and department heads will be a very effective way for him to start being an effective mayor from day one.
Sure. So I also kind of want to talk about the sort of day-to-day interactions you had with Harry while he was chief and you were mayor. So if you want to maybe give me, one or two things that you guys worked together on and if you feel very good about, and then one or two things where you guys may have butted heads, had some disagreements, and then had to come to a resolution.
Well, first let me talk about our interactions. When I became mayor, there were about 40 department heads and other individuals from commissions and fire chief and police chief who reported directly to the mayor. That's a very ineffectual and impossible management structure to sustain. So I organized what I call the cabinet style of government, in which I had 5 or 6 departments, all of which had a common purpose, would meet together with me. So in the case of Chief Rilling, we had a public security cabinet section, and obviously the police chief, the fire chief, the fire marshal, and other individuals. And we sort of interacted on that basis. In terms of specific incidents, I remember 2 things in particular. One was that under my predecessor, Norwalk had withdrawn from the anti-gang task force set up by the FBI and federal law enforcement authorities operating out of New Haven. I became mayor in 2001, and a few years earlier, we had started to have a local gang problem in many big cities in Connecticut, including Norwalk. And Harry was concerned that Norwalk was no longer participating in that task force. And he came to me and I think very effectively made the case, and we went to New Haven, met with the federal authorities and the FBI, and agreed to delegate 1 Norwalk police officer to this task force for, I think, a period of 2 years. That benefited Norwalk because it gave that officer training in how to relate to federal law enforcement, and it was a benefit for the city because we got additional attention from the FBI and federal enforcement authorities to deal with gangs. So we had additional wiretaps put on possible gang members, and actually ended up closing down a big drug center in Norwalk. And unfortunately, so Norwalk would not have the services of that officer, so it meant filling in with overtime. But it was overall, I think, a tremendous benefit, and that was one of the initiatives that Chief Rilling asked me to agree to, and I did. I think a second thing was, as you may know, in the police department, promotions are done on the basis of competitive exams, not on the basis of patronage or favoritism.
Sure.
And the exams expire after a period of, for example, 2 years. So if you take a sergeant's exam, there may be no openings for sergeant, but yet there's a list. So if there is an opening, there's a promotion list based on merit. And what was happening was that the list was about to expire, and there were a number of Hispanic officers who had done well on that test. And Chief Rilling asked me to consider expanding the number of sergeants to make sure that we had real diversity in the police department, and promoted these Hispanic officers into the position of sergeant before the exam list expired, which meant creating additional sort of slots. And again, I agreed to do that because I think the police department needs diversity and can be effective in its community relations if it has members in the department who reflect the diversity of our community in Norwalk. So those are 2 examples where Chief Rilling had suggested initiatives to me that made a great deal of sense, and I think that's the kind of proactive approach that he would also bring as mayor.
Sure. Anything where you guys sort of didn't see eye to eye, had to work through any disagreements, anything like that?
Well, I'm trying to think back. I don't remember any, but I'm sure there were some. I know we disagreed about the golf course once in a while.
Right.
And one of the initiatives that was going on while I was mayor was the planning and construction of the new Norwalk Police Headquarters in South Norwalk. And I made sure Harry was a member of the building committee and had a big role in making decisions. We made some changes, and I think rather than remembering the disagreements, I remember that Harry was very flexible. For example, the original plan for the police station had the firing range, which is a long
Right.
long block area with no windows along the South Main Street in Norwalk, and it was kind of a forbidding look as you
Right,
walk
right.
down the street. And what we did was, with the architect, reverse the location of the firing range. So the firing range would be moved around the corner, and the community room, which is open to community groups throughout the city, and with more windows and more sort of inviting, would be located along South Main Street. And that was the kind of change that we made to make sure that the station really fit in with the community. And again, as a key member of the building committee and as chief, Harry was very flexible about making those kinds of changes.
Primary day, September 10th. You'll find out where you can vote and full primary results on itsrelevant.com.